You know that feeling when you check your email even though you shouldn't? Like your brain is saying, don't do it, but your fingers have already typed in the password. I was standing on our hotel balcony in Santorini. The sky was this ridiculous shade of blue that doesn't even look real in photos. Nathan was still asleep inside, sprawled across our bed with the white sheets tangled around him. 2 days into our honeymoon. 2 days. I don't know why I checked my work email. Habit, I guess. Addiction, probably. The subject line was personnel update, position elimination. Not even my name, just personnel update. Like I was a freaking software patch. I remember how the phone felt suddenly heavy in my hand, how my stomach dropped before I even opened it, how the bright Greek sunshine seemed to dim as I read. Dear Elena, effective immediately, your position at Blackwood Partners has been eliminated due to departmental restructuring. Your final paycheck, including 2 week severance, will be deposited on the regular pay schedule. Please coordinate with IT regarding the return of company property upon your return. Regards, Josephine Blackwood, Chief Executive Officer. That's it. 6 years at the company. 6 years of 60-hour weeks, of canceled plans and missed birthdays. 6 years of building their client list from nothing into something that made them millions. And it ended with a 58-word email. I read it 4 times, each time hoping the words would somehow rearrange themselves. They didn't. I walked into the bathroom so Nathan wouldn't hear me cry, sat on the cold tile floor with my back against the door and sobbed into a hotel towel. The kind of crying where you can't breathe right, where your whole body shakes, where you're making these awful animal sounds you didn't know you could make. I cried until my face was swollen and I couldn't see straight. I was 34 years old, newly married, and unemployed in a foreign country. Hi, I'm Elena Christakos. Well, Elena Christakos Reeves now. Half Greek, all workaholic, apparently completely disposable. Until 2 weeks ago, I was the Senior Client Relations Director at Blackwood Partners, a wealth management firm in Boston that caters to high net worth individuals, which is just fancy talk for rich people who need someone else to manage their money. Before I go on, can you hit like and subscribe, and tell me in the comments if something like this has happened to you? Because in those first few hours, I felt so alone, I could barely breathe. Like I was the only person who'd ever been betrayed like this. I know now that's not true, but God, it felt that way. So there I was, sitting on the bathroom floor of this stupidly expensive hotel that I'd saved 3 years for, trying to figure out how to tell my husband of exactly 10 days that I'd just lost my job. The job that was paying for half of our mortgage. The job I'd talked about at our wedding when I thanked my work family for being so supportive. The job where, apparently, no one even had the decency to call me. I splashed cold water on my face and tried to pull myself together. Nathan knocked on the door. Lena, you okay in there? I opened the door and his face just fell. He knew immediately. What happened? Is it your mom? I handed him my phone, watched his expression change from concern to confusion to anger. What the actual, they can't do this. Can they do this? While you're on your honeymoon? I nodded. Apparently they can. But why? Your last performance review was stellar. You just landed the Petropolis account last month. The Petropolis account, a $50 million portfolio I'd spent 18 months courting. Dinners, presentations, weekend calls. Mr. Petropoulos was a fellow Greek-American who'd built a shipping empire and wanted someone who understood family values to handle his money. Josephine had practically wept with joy when I closed that deal. I don't know why, I said, which wasn't entirely true. I had suspicions. Nathan pulled me into a hug, and I could feel his heart racing. He was angry in a way I couldn't be yet. I was still in shock. We're going to figure this out, he said into my hair. But first, we're turning off your phone and having breakfast. They don't get to ruin our honeymoon. So I did what my husband asked. I turned off my phone. We ate Greek yogurt with honey and fresh figs on our balcony. We talked about anything except work. And for about 3 hours, I almost forgot. But at lunch, sitting at this little taverna by the water, something in me couldn't take it anymore. While Nathan was in the bathroom, I turned my phone back on. It exploded. Notifications stacked on top of each other. Texts, calls, voicemails, emails, all from the same few hours after I'd received the termination email. The first text was from Arjun, my assistant. "What is happening? Clients are freaking out. Josephine looks like she's going to have a stroke. Call me." The next was from Daniela in the legal department. "Elena, the Blackwood sisters are in full meltdown. Marcella just screamed at Josephine in front of everyone. I've never seen anything like it." Then I saw a text from Rex, our head of security. "They've asked me to revoke your access, but I'm having technical difficulties. You've got 48 hours before I have to comply." But the message that made me gasp out loud was from Thomas, our client services coordinator. 47 of our biggest clients are threatening to leave unless we get you back. They said they only signed because of your personal involvement. Josephine is beside herself. The board called an emergency meeting. What do you want us to do? 47 clients. That's over 80% of our high-value portfolio. Billions of dollars walking out the door. Because of me. My hands were shaking so hard I could barely scroll through the rest of the messages. Voicemails from clients themselves. People like Jonathan Leibowitz, who managed a hedge fund and had entrusted us with his personal fortune. Diana Chen, the tech CEO, who'd followed me from my last firm. The Rosenberg family, who'd been with me since I started. All saying variations of the same thing. If Elena's gone, we're gone. Nathan came back to the table and found me staring at my phone, tears streaming down my face. "What now?" he asked, alarmed. I looked up at him and something shifted inside me. The shock was wearing off. The hurt was still there. A jagged wound that would take time to heal. But now there was something else. A slow-burning ember of something that felt dangerously close to power. "I think," I said slowly, "I just realized how badly Josephine miscalculated. Let me back up a bit. You need to understand Blackwood Partners to understand what happened. The firm was founded by three sisters, Josephine, Marcella, and Regina Blackwood, who inherited their father's investment business. Josephine, the oldest, was CEO. She had the financial acumen and the killer instinct. Marcella, the middle sister, was the relationship builder, the one who made clients feel special. Regina, the youngest, handled operations and kept the machine running. I was hired by Marcella 6 years ago. She found me at a competitor where I'd hit a ceiling. Too young, too female, too ethnic, to advance beyond a certain point. Marcella saw something in me. She mentored me. Within a year, I was handling their top-tier clients. Within 3 years, I was bringing in more new business than anyone else at the firm. The thing is, wealth management isn't just about numbers. It's about trust. These clients aren't just handing over money. They're handing over their security, their children's futures, their legacies. They need to believe you care about those things as much as they do. And I did. I remembered their kids' names, their anniversaries, their food allergies. I called when they were sick. I sent handwritten notes. I answered their texts at midnight. Not because some management book told me to, but because I genuinely cared. The problem? About a year ago, Marcella got sick. Breast cancer, stage 3. She stepped away from day-to-day operations to focus on treatment. And something in Josephine changed. She'd always been the colder sister, the numbers person. But without Marcella as a buffer, Josephine's focus narrowed exclusively to the bottom line. Staff wellness programs? Cut. The annual client appreciation event? Downsized to a virtual webinar. The personal touches that Marcella had insisted made us special? Deemed inefficient. I pushed back, quietly at first, then more forcefully as I saw client satisfaction scores start to dip. I went around Josephine directly to Regina, who still had enough pull to preserve some of what made us different. Then came the final straw. 3 weeks before my wedding, Josephine called me into her office. "Elena, we need to talk about your client load. I'm concerned it's becoming unwieldy." I remember being confused. My clients were happy. Our retention rate was nearly 100%. "I'm handling it fine," I said. "The client satisfaction surveys." "This isn't about satisfaction," she cut me off. It's about efficiency. You're spending too much time on individual attention. We need to standardize our approach. Then she dropped the bomb. I'm reassigning the Petropolis account to Bradley. Bradley Winters, Harvard MBA, Josephine's new golden boy. The kind of guy who calls older women sweetheart and interrupts you to explain your own ideas back to you. Mr. Petropoulos specifically requested me, I argued. He won't stay if you move him. Josephine's smile was thin. We'll manage the transition. I've already discussed it with Bradley. Already discussed it. Without me, the account I'd brought in, the client who trusted me. I wish I could say I maintained my composure. I didn't. This is a mistake, I said, my voice rising. Bradley doesn't have the relationship skills for these clients. They don't want a template approach. They want someone who treats them like individuals. That's an outdated model, Josephine replied. Modern wealth management is about systems, not personalities. We can't have clients too attached to individual advisors. It creates vulnerability. I stared at her. These relationships are why they choose us over Goldman or Morgan Stanley. It's our differentiator. It was Marcella's approach, she said dismissively. And while my sister has many qualities, business strategy isn't one of them. That's when I knew. This wasn't about efficiency. This was a power play. With Marcella sidelined, Josephine was dismantling her sister's vision and replacing it with her own. And I was collateral damage. I left the meeting seething but professional. I had my wedding coming up, a honeymoon planned. I decided to let it lie until I returned. We could have a proper conversation when I wasn't stressed about seating charts and flower arrangements. Little did I know, Josephine had already made her decision. The rest of that day in Santorini is a blur. I remember Nathan canceling our sunset cruise. I remember sitting on our balcony making calls, the beautiful view completely wasted on me. I called Arjun first. My God, Elena, it's chaos here, he said. His voice hushed like he was hiding in a supply closet. Josephine announced your departure in yesterday's morning meeting like it was a normal staffing update. By noon, word had reached the clients. The Rosenbergs called first, then the Chens, then it was like dominoes. What exactly are they saying? I asked. That they'll pull their accounts if you're not reinstated, Mr. Lebowitz said. And I quote, I don't trust my money to algorithms and spreadsheets. I trust Elena. I felt a surge of gratitude so intense it nearly brought me to tears again. These people, many of whom I'd never even met in person because of COVID, were going to bat for me. Has Josephine reached out to you? Arjun asked. No, I said. Just the termination email. He made a disgusted sound. Regina's furious. She's saying Josephine made this decision unilaterally, without board approval. There's talk of an emergency vote. And Marcella? She showed up today. First time in months. She looked awful, still doing chemo, but she was on the warpath. I've never heard her raise her voice before. I hung up and immediately checked my email again. Still nothing from Josephine. Nothing from HR. It was like they'd thrown a grenade and then gone silent. I called Rex next, to understand what kind of access I still had. Then Daniela in legal, to find out where I stood contractually. Then I started returning client calls. Every conversation followed the same pattern. Shock and outrage on their behalf. Concern about what this meant for their accounts. And then, invariably, the question, what are you going to do next? By dinner time, my phone buzzed with a text from a number I didn't recognize. Elena, this is Regina Blackwood. We need to talk. Urgently. Can you call me on this personal number? I showed Nathan the text. He'd been sitting beside me for hours, bringing me water, taking notes, being my rock. Are you going to call her? He asked. I stared at the message for a long time. The old Elena, the people pleaser, the good employee, the woman who never rocked the boat, would have called immediately. Would have been pathetically grateful for the attention. But that Elena died on a bathroom floor in Santorini. Not yet, I said, setting down the phone. First, I need to figure out what I actually want. Nathan's eyes widened slightly. Then he smiled. A small, proud smile that made my heart lift for the first time that day. And what do you want? He asked. I looked out at the darkening Aegean Sea, at the lights coming on across the caldera, at the first stars appearing in the sky. I want them to know exactly what they've lost, I said. It's funny how clarity hits you sometimes. Not in a lightning bolt moment, but in these quiet little waves that add up until suddenly the path forward is just obvious. Nathan and I stayed up until 3 a.m. that night. The hotel balcony, a bottle of wine, 2 legal pads. We made lists. We ran numbers. We played out scenarios. Somewhere around 1 a.m., he looked at me across the table and said, "You know you don't have to go back there, right?" I blinked at him. "What do you mean?" "I mean these clients. They're following you, not the Blackwood name. You've essentially been running a business within a business for years." I'd never thought of it that way. I was so busy being a good employee, I'd ignored the leverage I'd built. These relationships weren't company assets. They were human connections. They were mine. By sunrise, I had a plan. Not a perfect one, not even a fully formed one, but a direction. I waited until Boston business hours and called Regina back. "Elena," she answered immediately. "Thank God. I've been trying to damage control this disaster since yesterday morning." "What exactly happened, Regina?" I kept my voice steady. She sighed heavily. "Josephine made an executive decision without consulting the board. She said your compensation package had become unsustainable, and that Bradley could maintain your client relationships at 60% of the cost." I actually laughed. It was so absurd. "And how's that working out for her?" The Leibowitz call alone was a 40-minute dress, down that ended with him threatening to tell every member of his golf club to pull their investments. The Chen portfolio is already in process to transfer. The Rosenbergs are livid. She paused. "We need you back, Elena. The board is meeting at 4 today." I took a deep breath. "I appreciate that, Regina, but I need you to understand something. Even if you vote to bring me back, I'm not sure I want to return to a company where the CEO can fire me on my honeymoon with a form email." Silence on the line. "What do you want?" she finally asked. Smart woman, getting right to negotiation. "I want to finish my honeymoon first," I said. "Then we'll talk terms." "Elena, we don't have that kind of time. Clients are moving their money now." "Then I suggest you find a way to stall them," I replied, "because I'm not cutting my honeymoon short to fix Josephine's mistake." After I hung up, Nathan looked at me with a mix of awe and concern. "You just stood up to Regina Blackwood," he said. I nodded, surprised at myself. "I did." "Are you actually considering going back?" I stared out at the perfect blue sea. On my terms. Or not at all. I'd like to say I spent the rest of the honeymoon blissfully disconnected, focusing only on my new husband and the beautiful Greek islands. But that would be a lie. Every morning, I spent an hour returning client calls and emails. Not as a Blackwood employee, but as Elena, their trusted advisor who wanted to keep them informed. I never said I was coming back. I never said I wasn't. I just listened to their concerns and assured them I was working on a solution. The rest of each day, I tried to be present with Nathan. We hiked, we swam, we ate incredible food, we made love in our ridiculously expensive hotel room. But always, in the back of my mind, gears were turning. On day 5, Regina texted, "Board voted 2-1 to offer you your position back. Josephine opposed." Of course she did. I replied, "Thank you. We'll discuss when I return." On day 7, Arjun texted that Bradley had been pulled from a client call after he couldn't answer basic questions about the Petropoulos portfolio structure. Mr. Petropoulos had apparently said, "Get me someone who knows what they're talking about or get me Elena." On day 9, Marcella called from her personal phone. "Elena," her voice was weaker than I remembered, strained from her treatments. "I'm so sorry about all this. I never would have let it happen if I'd known." My anger softened a bit. Marcella had always been good to me. "I know that," I said. "How are you feeling?" "Like hell," she answered honestly. "But the doctors are optimistic. Another round of chemo, then surgery." She paused. "The firm needs you, Elena. I need you." I closed my eyes. That's the thing about manipulation. It still works even when you recognize it. "Marcella, I appreciate that, but Josephine made her position very clear. Josephine is. She searched for words. My sister is brilliant with numbers, but terrible with people. Always has been. She sees relationships as inefficiencies. That's a fundamental difference in business philosophy, I said. Yes, Marcella agreed. And that difference is destroying what my father built. Her voice cracked. Please, just come to a meeting when you get back. Hear our offer. I promised I would listen. Nothing more. I spent the last day of my honeymoon drafting an email to my most loyal clients. Not a mass email, individual messages to each of them. Personalized, addressing their specific concerns. I didn't send them. Not yet. But they were ready. We flew back to Boston on a Sunday. Monday morning, I dressed carefully. A charcoal gray suit, my best silk blouse, the pearl earrings my grandmother left me. Armor. You look like you're going to war, Nathan observed as I applied my lipstick. I caught his eye in the mirror. I am. The Blackwood offices occupy 3 floors of a gleaming tower overlooking Boston Harbor. I'd spent more time in that building than in my own apartment for the past 6 years. As I walked through the glass doors, the security guard did a double take. Mrs. Christakos. Reeves now, right? We didn't expect. I have a meeting. I cut him off politely, sliding my now useless badge across the desk. Can you let them know I'm here? The executive conference room was on the top floor. Floor-to-ceiling windows with views that were supposed to impress clients. All 3 Blackwood sisters were waiting, along with Harold Chen from the board and someone I didn't recognize. A woman in her 50s with a severe bob and a legal pad. Josephine stood first, extending her hand like we were meeting for the first time. Elena, thank you for coming. I shook her hand but said nothing, taking the seat across from her. Regina looked anxious. Marcella exhausted but determined. I want to begin by acknowledging that the handling of your position elimination was unfortunate, Josephine began, reading from prepared notes. Unfortunate, I repeated flatly. Yes, the timing was poor and the communication method was impersonal. For that, I apologize. The woman with the legal pad nodded approvingly. Ah, the PR handler, of course. However, Josephine continued, I stand by the business decision. We needed to restructure client services for scalability and efficiency. I folded my hands on the table. And how is that restructuring going, Josephine? Regina shifted uncomfortably. Marcella stared at her sister. There have been challenges, Josephine admitted, which is why we've asked you here. The board has voted to create a new position, Executive Client Relations Director. You would report directly to the board, not to me. Your compensation would increase by 15%, plus an expanded equity package. I looked at each of them in turn. And you believe that solves the problem? We believe it acknowledges your value to the firm, Regina said, and creates a structure where this kind of misunderstanding couldn't happen again. Misunderstanding. What a sanitized word for betrayal. I'm curious, I said, addressing Josephine directly. Did you actually think the clients wouldn't care? That Bradley could just step in and they'd accept it? She stiffened. We underestimated the personal attachments. That's a fair criticism. It's not about personal attachments, I said, leaning forward. It's about trust. These people entrust us with their financial security, their children's futures, their retirements. That's intensely personal. They don't trust Blackwood Partners. They trust specific people at Blackwood Partners. Marcella nodded. That's what I've been saying for 20 years. So, Harold Chen spoke for the first time. Will you accept our offer? I reached into my bag and pulled out a folder. No, I said simply. I won't. Josephine's face darkened. Elena, be reasonable. You're not going to find a better compensation package elsewhere. I don't want to be someone else's asset anymore, I said, sliding papers across the table to each of them. This is my counter-proposal. They all stared at the document titled Christakos Partners, LLC. You're starting your own firm? Regina asked, eyes wide. I already have, I replied. Filed the paperwork last week. I've secured financing based on commitments from clients representing over $2 billion in assets. The room went silent. The PR woman was scribbling frantically. This would destroy Blackwood, Josephine said, her voice deadly quiet. Not necessarily, I said. That's why I'm here. I'm proposing a managed transition, an official spin-off, with Blackwood maintaining a minority stake. My clients move with me, but your company preserves some of the value and avoids a mass exodus. Harold Chen was reading my proposal with increasing interest. A strategic partnership, he mused. Exactly. Blackwood gets a revenue share without the overhead of my team. I get independence and control over client relationships. I looked directly at Josephine. Everyone gets what they actually want. This is absurd, Josephine snapped. We'll challenge this legally. Your client relationships were developed while employed here. There are non-competes. That mysteriously disappeared from my contract during my last renewal. I finished for her. I checked with legal before I left. And since you terminated me without cause, any remaining restrictions are unenforceable. Marcella let out a sound between a laugh and a cough. She's got you, Joe. You knew about this? Josephine turned on her sister. No, Marcella replied. But I'm not surprised. Elena was always smarter than you gave her credit for. She turned to me. What would this partnership look like practically? For the next hour, we hashed out details. Harold and Regina asked pointed questions. The PR woman stopped taking notes and just listened, wide-eyed. Josephine said almost nothing, her lips pressed into a thin line. By the time we finished, we hadn't reached a final agreement, but the outlines were clear. I would establish Christakos partners with my core clients. Blackwood would maintain a 20% stake, ensuring they didn't lose everything. Most importantly, I would have complete autonomy over client relationships and business development. We'll need to take this to the full board, Harold said finally. I nodded and stood. You have 48 hours. After that, I send my announcements to clients. As I gathered my things, Josephine finally spoke again. You planned this all along, didn't you? Built up your client relationships knowing you'd eventually take them. I met her gaze evenly. No, Josephine. I built relationships because that's what good advisors do. I loved this company. I defended it. I recruited for it. I canceled plans and missed holidays for it. I slipped my folder back into my bag. You taught me something valuable, though. Never confuse loyalty to a company with loyalty to your own worth. I walked out of that conference room with my heart pounding but my steps steady. In the elevator, I finally let myself exhale, leaning against the wall as the doors closed. My phone buzzed with a text from Nathan. How did it go? I smiled and typed back, I just became a CEO. The next 48 hours were a blur. More meetings, lawyers, phone calls with potential staff starting with Arjun, who accepted my offer on the spot. The board approved my proposal, with one change. They wanted 30% ownership. I counter-offered at 22%. We settled at 25%. 1 week after returning from my honeymoon, I signed papers establishing a formal partnership between Blackwood Partners and the newly formed Christakos Partners. 3 weeks after that, we moved into our own offices, smaller, but with the same harbor view. The transition wasn't perfectly smooth. Bradley tried to convince some of my clients to stay. A few of the smaller ones did. But the core relationships, the Leibowitzes, the Chens, the Rosenbergs, the Petropoulos account, they all came with me. In the end, I took 52 clients representing nearly 65% of Blackwood's high net worth portfolio. Josephine resigned 2 months later. Pursuing other opportunities, the press release said, Regina became CEO, with Marcella taking a more active board role as her health improved. It's been 18 months now. Christakos Partners is thriving. We've even stolen a few key employees from Blackwood, including Daniela from legal and Rex from security. I worked just as hard as I ever did, but now every late night and weekend email feels different. It's mine. Nathan and I bought a house outside the city. Sometimes when I can't sleep, I still think about that moment in Santorini sobbing on the bathroom floor, feeling like my world had ended. I think about how close I came to begging for my job back. Last week, Marcella invited me to lunch. Her cancer is in remission. Her hair is growing back, silvery at the temples. You know, she said as we shared a bottle of wine, when Josephine sent that email, I nearly disowned her. But now, she gestured between us. At the successful businesswomen we'd both become, I almost want to thank her. I laughed. I wouldn't go that far. Fair enough, she smiled. But look what you've built, Elena. Would you have ever done it if you hadn't been pushed? I thought about it honestly. Probably not. Sometimes the worst moments crack us open in ways we need, she said. Not that I'm defending her. What she did was cruel and stupid. And the best thing that ever happened to me, I admitted. We clinked glasses to that. So if you're watching this and you're in that bathroom floor moment, the one where you feel like everything is collapsing, I want you to know something. You're stronger than you think you are. That thing you're afraid to do, the leap you're terrified to take, sometimes the universe pushes you when you won't jump yourself. When Josephine fired me, she thought she was eliminating a cost center. What she really did was create her biggest competitor. The best revenge isn't something you plot and scheme. It's not about making someone else suffer. It's about taking the blow and transforming it into something powerful. It's about becoming more fully yourself. That email was meant to end my career. Instead, it forced me to begin. So be angry. Cry on the bathroom floor. Feel everything you need to feel. Then get up, wash your face, and start building. Because sometimes getting fired isn't the end of your story. It's the first page.